My mom banned my son's ninth birthday party because my sister's kids didn't feel special enough. So we packed that night and disappeared. A year later, the cousins saw how happy my kid was, and my sister couldn't handle it. The meltdown that followed shattered the family. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. It was 11:51 p.m. when the text came through. My mother's message lit up the phone I had placed face down on the kitchen counter. You are no longer welcome at the lake house. The keys need to be returned immediately. I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by boxes labeled Galaxy Campout, staring at the words. My son, Seth, was asleep in the back seat of the car I had just packed. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel the crushing weight of rejection that usually accompanies these moments. Instead, I felt a chilling, sharp clarity. It was the feeling of a contract finally expiring. My name is Laura, and for 32 years, I have been the unpaid employee of the Henderson family. My sister, Cheyenne, is the star, the one who posts perfectly curated photos of her life online, the one whose whims become family policy. My mother, Stephanie, is the enabler who ensures the spotlight never wavers from her golden child. And me? I'm the fixer, the one who handles the logistics, the bills, and the cleanup. I looked out the window at the dark outline of the lake house. It was supposed to be the venue for Seth's 10th birthday party tomorrow. He loves astronomy. He's quiet, observant, the kind of kid who can name every moon of Jupiter, but struggles to make friends at school. This party was going to be his moment. I had spent $5,000, money I had saved for 2 years, renting custom telescopes, hiring an astronomer, and turning the boathouse into a planetarium. But 4 hours earlier, the sun was setting over the water, and the lake house had looked exactly the way I imagined it for 6 months. I want you to picture what I had built. This wasn't a few streamers and a sheet cake. I had transformed the main deck into an observatory. I had rented 3 high-powered Celestron telescopes, the kind you need a permit and a deposit to secure. Inside the great room, I had set up a portable planetarium dome that projected the northern hemisphere's constellations onto the ceiling. I had ordered custom cookies hand-painted to look like the moons of Jupiter. Every detail was for Seth. My son is 10 years old, and he has spent most of that decade being told to be quiet, to make room, to not be so intense about his interests. Today, for the first time, he was going to be the center of the universe. I was adjusting the focus on the primary telescope when I heard the gravel crunch in the driveway. It wasn't the sound of a guest arriving. It was the aggressive, entitled skid of an SUV that has never had to wait for a parking spot. My stomach dropped. I knew that sound. I watched from the deck as my mother's white Lexus stopped right on the lawn. Not the driveway, the lawn I had spent 3 weekends aerating and reseeding. The doors flew open. My sister, Cheyenne, stepped out first. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a Venti iced coffee, looking at her phone. My mother, Stephanie, followed, carrying garment bags. They looked like they were invading a country, not visiting a grandson. Laura. Cheyenne's voice carried up the hill, shrill and demanding. Why is there a tent in the living room? I can see it through the window. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked down to meet them. It's a planetarium, Cheyenne. For Seth's birthday. The one I invited you to 3 weeks ago. She pulled down her sunglasses and looked at me like I had spoken in binary code.
Right.
The birthday. She looked around the yard, her nose wrinkling. Well, we have a problem. This. She gestured vaguely at my carefully curated setup. This vibe? It's not going to work. What are you talking about? I asked. I have a crisis, she said, pushing past me toward the house. The venue for my summer solstice brand launch fell through. Double booked. Can you believe it? I have a sponsor coming tomorrow at 10 a.m. to shoot content. I need the lake house. I stopped walking. The air suddenly felt very thin. No, I said. Cheyenne spun around. Excuse me? I said no. This is Seth's birthday. I have 10 kids coming tomorrow night for a sleepover. I have an astronomer driving in from the city. You can't have the house. My mother stepped in then. She used her soothing voice, The one she uses to smooth over Cheyenne's disasters while steamrolling everyone else. Laura, be reasonable. Cheyenne is under a contract. If she doesn't post this content, she loses the partnership. It's a lot of money. I spent $5,000 on this party, I said, my voice shaking but steady. I booked this weekend 4 months ago. It's on the family calendar. You both marked decline on the invite. 5,000. Cheyenne laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. Laura, honey, my contract is worth 20,000. Do the math. She walked onto the deck and picked up one of the custom Galaxy cookies I had placed on the table. She looked at it with disgust, then dropped it back onto the plate. It cracked down the middle. We need to clear all this junk out, Cheyenne said, gesturing to the telescopes. I need a clean, boho chic aesthetic. White linens, pampas grass, natural light. This science fair project, it's clutter. It's not clutter, I snapped. It's my son's joy. And I maintain this house, Cheyenne. I pay the property taxes you ignore. I pay the plumber when the pipes freeze because you left the heat off. I earned this weekend. Cheyenne turned to our mother.
She didn't even look at me.
She just looked at the manager. Mom, fix it. I can't work in these conditions. And that was it. The hierarchy was established. I wasn't a sister. I was an obstacle. I stood there, waiting for my mother to defend me, to defend her grandson, to defend the basic concept of fairness. But Stephanie just sighed, checking her watch. Laura, don't be difficult. We can move Seth's little party to the kitchen. He can look at the stars from the driveway. Cheyenne needs the main house. I followed them into the kitchen. The air conditioning was humming, a low, expensive sound that usually comforted me. Today, it sounded like a countdown. Cheyenne was already raiding the fridge, pulling out the premium sparkling water I had stocked for the parents coming tomorrow. She cracked it open, took a sip and grimaced.
Lime?
You know I only drink grapefruit. I paid for that water, I said. Just like I paid for the roof repair last winter when the snow collapsed the porch. Just like I paid the property taxes 3 months ago because Mom said her liquidity was tied up. My mother froze. She turned slowly, her face hardening into a mask of disappointed elegance. Laura, don't be crass. We don't discuss money. We need to discuss it, I said. Because you act like this house runs on magic. It runs on my paycheck. I've spent $15,000 this year keeping this place standing. I did it because you said it was our family legacy. Because you said it was for everyone. It is for everyone, Stephanie said, smoothing her silk blouse. And right now, the family needs Cheyenne to succeed. Her success lifts us all. I looked at Cheyenne. She was leaning against the granite counter, scrolling through her phone board. She didn't look like she was lifting anyone. She looked like a dead weight wrapped in designer labels. I saved $5,000 for this weekend, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. I skipped vacations. I drove a car with a cracked windshield for 6 months. I did it because Seth is 10 years old, and he thinks he's invisible. He thinks he doesn't matter because every time we have a family gathering, he gets shoved into the corner so Cheyenne can film a reel. Oh my God, Cheyenne groaned, not looking up. He's a kid. He doesn't care. Give him an iPad and he's fine. You're projecting, Laura. It's pathetic. And that's when it hit me. The realization didn't come with anger. It came with the cold precision of a diagnosis. For years, I had asked myself why. Why did my mother worship the daughter who demanded everything and gave nothing, while treating the daughter who fixed everything like a nuisance? I used to think it was my fault. I used to think if I just worked harder, paid more bills, fixed more leaks, she would finally look at me with that same adoration. But standing in that kitchen, I finally understood the trap of normalized cruelty. It wasn't about love. It was about supply. Cheyenne is the projection of everything my mother wants to be, glamorous, admired, the center of attention. Cheyenne is the billboard for the family brand. Even when she's fake, even when she's failing, she performs the script my mother wrote.
Me?
I am the mirror. When my mother looks at me, she doesn't see a successful event planner. She sees the leaks in the roof. She sees the unpaid taxes. She sees the mess she refuses to clean up. I am the evidence of her inadequacy. She doesn't hate me. She hates that she needs me. And she loves Cheyenne because Cheyenne allows her to pretend the mess doesn't exist. I'm not projecting, I said. I'm parenting. Something you two might want to try. Stephanie slammed her hand on the counter. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Enough, she said. Her voice wasn't soothing anymore. It was ice. I am making an executive decision. This house is under my name. Cheyenne has a contract to fulfill. This is a business opportunity for your sister, and I will not let you sabotage it with your petty jealousy. She took a step closer to me, invading my space. Seth can have his cake in the kitchen tomorrow afternoon, she said. We'll keep the noise down while Cheyenne films in the great room. Or, if that isn't good enough for you, you can leave.
Right now.
I looked at her. I looked at the woman I had spent 32 years trying to please. I looked at the sister I had spent my savings trying to impress. You're kicking us out, I said. On his birthday. I'm setting boundaries, Stephanie said, using the therapy speak she weaponized so well. You're being unreasonable. Take the kitchen or take the highway. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply nodded. It was the nod of someone closing a ledger. Okay, I said. Okay. Stephanie blinked, surprised by my sudden calm. Okay, I repeated. I choose the highway. I turned around and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't feel like a daughter anymore. I felt like a vendor who had just realized the client was insolvent, and I was about to repossess the goods. I didn't stop until I reached the main deck. My team was there, 3 assistants I had hired to help with the load-in, and the astronomer I had flown in from the city. They were adjusting the lenses on the telescopes, waiting for the sky to darken. Strike it, I said. My lead assistant, Marcus, looked up confused. Laura? The sun is just going down. We haven't even calibrated the... Strike everything, I repeated. My voice was flat, devoid of the panic that was currently trying to strangle my heart. Pack the scopes. Deflate the planetarium. Box the cookies. Load the van. Is the party canceled? The venue has been compromised, I said, using the industry language that kept me grounded. We are pulling out. I didn't wait for them to argue. I walked back into the house, but not to argue with my mother. I went to the storage closet where I kept the inventory logs. You see, Stephanie and Cheyenne saw a house. I saw a ledger. They assumed the Italian leather sofas in the great room were just there, part of the property. They forgot that I had bought them 3 years ago when the old ones molded over because Cheyenne left a window open during a storm. They assumed the commercial-grade refrigerator was a fixture. I had paid for it last July. The teak patio furniture? Mine. The Sonos sound system?
Mine.
The vintage rugs?
Mine.
If they wanted me to leave, I would leave. But I was taking my equity with me. I pulled out my phone and called the moving company I used for my corporate events. It was 7 p.m. on a Friday, but I paid a premium retainer for emergency logistics. I need a crew at the lake house, I told the dispatcher. 2 trucks. Immediate extraction. I'm paying double for the rush. We can be there in 45 minutes, he said.
Good.
Bring tools. We're taking the appliances. I spent the next hour in a fugue state of efficiency. I didn't scream at Cheyenne, who was in the master bedroom trying on outfits for her shoot. I didn't plead with my mother, who was on the patio drinking wine, thinking she had won. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, tagging items with blue painter's tape.
Sofa.
Blue tape. Dining table. Blue tape. Sound system. Blue tape. The wine fridge stocked with their celebration champagne. Blue tape. When the trucks arrived, the noise finally drew them out. The rumble of diesel engines and the beep of reversing trucks shattered the lakeside quiet. Cheyenne came running onto the porch, a silk kimono half tied around her waist. What is going on?
Who are these people?
Movers, I said, handing a clipboard to the foreman. Movers? Why? I'm leaving, I said, picking up a box of Seth's books. And I'm taking my property. You can't take the furniture, she shrieked, watching 2 men hoist the leather sectional she planned to use for her interview backdrop. I need that for the aesthetic. It's in my name, Cheyenne. I have the receipts. My mother stormed out, her face purple. Laura, stop this instant. You are being vindictive. You are ruining your sister's launch. You evicted me, I said, not stopping. You told me to take the highway. I'm just packing my bags. The refrigerator? She gasped as the crew wheeled out the Sub-Zero unit. You're taking the refrigerator? I bought it. July 14th, 2022. Check your records. Oh wait, you don't keep records. I do. They stood there, helpless, as I dismantled the stage they had set for themselves. They threatened to call the police. I told them to go ahead. I had the deeds and the receipts in a PDF on my phone, ready to show any officer who arrived. They didn't call. They knew they would lose. By 11 p.m., the house was a shell. The great room was empty, just a cavernous space with dust bunnies where the rug used to be. The kitchen was dark and hollow. The deck was bare. I went upstairs to the guest room where Seth was hiding. He was sitting on his bed, wearing his astronaut pajamas, looking terrified. Mom, he whispered. Is it over? I knelt in front of him. The party is moving, Seth. We're going on a secret mission. Just you and me. Operation Night Sky. His eyes widened. Really? Really?
Grab your backpack.
We're leaving now. I walked him past his grandmother and his aunt. They were sitting on the floor of the empty living room, illuminated only by the harsh light of their smartphones. They didn't look up. They were too busy typing, probably spinning the narrative already. I strapped Seth into the car. I took one last look at the house, dark, empty, and cold. It looked exactly how it felt to be a daughter in this family. I got into the driver's seat. I opened my contacts. I selected Stephanie. Block. I selected Cheyenne. Block. I put the car in drive. The gravel crunched beneath my tires, a sound of finality. We hit the highway, and for the first time in my life, I didn't check the rearview mirror. The contract was void. The workhorse was free. The silence that followed our departure wasn't empty. It was heavy, like the air before a storm. For the first 3 days, my phone was a brick. No calls came through, because I had blocked them all. I didn't check social media. I didn't ask for updates. I focused entirely on the logistics of survival. We found a small, furnished apartment in a town 40 miles away. It wasn't a lake house, but it was clean and the rent was exactly what I could afford without dipping into the Galaxy Fund, the $5,000 I clawed back from the vendors. Then the static started. It didn't come directly from my mother or Cheyenne. It came from the extended network, the aunts and cousins who functioned as the family's relay stations. I received a voicemail from my Aunt Patricia. Her voice was dripping with that specific kind of concern that is actually just curiosity wrapped in judgment. Laura, honey, Stephanie told us what happened. She said you had an episode. She said you took Seth and ran off in the middle of the night. We're worried about your mental state. Please, just let us know Seth is safe. An episode. That was the narrative. They weren't the villains who evicted a 10-year-old on his birthday. I was the unstable daughter who snapped. They were spinning a story of concern to cover their cruelty. It was a whisper campaign designed to discredit me before I could speak. I didn't call Patricia back. I didn't post a manifesto on Facebook defending my sanity. I knew that in a war of words, the person holding the microphone always wins, and my mother had owned the microphone for 30 years. Instead, I spoke the only language that can't be twisted: success. I took the $5,000, the money that was supposed to buy telescopes and cookies, and I walked into a commercial leasing office. I rented a small storefront downtown. It had exposed brick and terrible lighting, but it had potential. I registered the LLC the same day. Stellar Events. I didn't launch a general party planning business. I niched down. I marketed myself as a crisis coordinator and high-stakes event architect. I used the photos of my previous work at the lake house, the events I had planned for free for my ungrateful family, as my portfolio. While they were whispering about my breakdown, I was building my infrastructure. I worked 16-hour days. I turned that storefront into a showroom. I reached out to the vendors I had canceled on, apologizing and re-establishing relationships as a business owner, not a daughter. They liked me. They knew I paid on time. They knew I was meticulous. Seth thrived. It turns out, when you remove a child from an environment where he is constantly treated as an accessory, he blooms. He joined a local astronomy club. He made friends who thought his knowledge of black holes was cool, not weird. We ate dinner on the floor of the new apartment, laughing, planning, breathing. 6 months passed. I was solvent. The business was breaking even. The silence from the family had turned into a cold war. Then the house of cards collapsed. It happened on a Tuesday. I was at the shop, finalizing a contract for a charity gala, when a man walked in. He wasn't a client. He wore a cheap suit and carried a leather portfolio that looked like it had seen better days. "Are you Laura Henderson?" he asked. "I am." "I'm looking for Cheyenne Henderson," he said. This address was listed as a secondary contact on her lease agreement. My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with intuition. "I haven't spoken to Cheyenne in 6 months. What is this regarding?" "I'm a process server," he said, handing me a card. "But I'm also trying to collect on a judgment. She's being sued for breach of contract." He didn't need to tell me the details, but he did, probably hoping I would pay to make the problem go away. The summer launch, the event she had evicted me for, had been a catastrophe. When I stripped the lake house, I didn't just take the furniture. I took the production value. I took the aesthetic. Cheyenne had arrived the next morning with her camera crew to find an empty shell. No couches. No rugs. No lighting. No catering. She tried to pivot. She tried to style it herself using cheap rentals, but Cheyenne has no taste. She only has demands. The boho chic vibe looked like a garage sale. The sponsor, a major lifestyle brand, arrived on set, took one look at the chaos, and pulled the plug. They sued her for the advance they had paid her, $20,000, plus damages for the wasted production time. But that wasn't the twist. The twist was the debt. The process server revealed that Cheyenne was insolvent. She had been living on credit cards and family loans for years. The summer launch wasn't just a brand deal, it was a lifeline. She needed that $20,000 to pay off a looming balloon payment on her lifestyle. When the deal died, the dominoes fell. She listed the lake house as an asset, the man said, looking at his notes. But the title search shows it's heavily leveraged. Your mother took out a second mortgage to cover Cheyenne's legal retainers. I stared at him. The picture was complete. They hadn't just been mean. They had been desperate. They evicted me because they needed the venue to save Cheyenne from her own financial incompetence. And because I left, because I took my labor and my assets with me, I had inadvertently pushed the button that detonated their financial lives. "I can't help you," I told the man, handing back his card. "I don't know where she is. And I don't have any assets that belong to her." He nodded, looking tired. "If you see her, tell her it's not going away." "I won't see her," I said. I watched him walk out the door, past the display of telescopes I had set up in the window. I felt a cold, grim satisfaction settle in my chest. It wasn't joy. It was the feeling of a ledger finally balancing out. They had tried to destroy my reputation with whispers, but I had destroyed their reality with silence. Without the fixer, the golden child was just a broke girl in an empty house. And the walls were starting to cave in. A year later, the sky was on fire. It was the night of the Perseid meteor shower. Stellar Events had partnered with the city to shut down the main park lights. We had set up 50 telescopes, a live band playing ambient music, and food trucks lining the perimeter. It was the biggest event of the summer, and I was the architect. I stood near the VIP tent, adjusting my headset, watching the crowd. There were families on blankets, couples sharing wine, and kids running around with glow sticks. It was beautiful. It was profitable. But the real star wasn't the meteors. It was Seth. He was center stage, literally. I had set him up with the largest telescope, a beast of a machine that could see the rings of Saturn. He was wearing a Stellar Crew t-shirt, and there was a line of kids waiting to look through his lens. He wasn't the quiet, invisible boy hiding in the guest room anymore. He was the expert. He was explaining azimuth and elevation to a group of teenagers who were actually listening. A local photographer snapped a candid shot of him pointing at the sky, his face illuminated by the red light of a headlamp, grinning. They posted it to the town's Instagram page an hour ago. It was already viral locally. Caption: The boy who knows the stars. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Marcus, my head of operations. Laura, he said, his voice tight. We have a situation at the North Gate. What kind of situation? A woman. She's erratic. She says she's your sister. I didn't panic. I checked my watch. Handle it. She drove her car onto the grass, Laura. She's demanding to see you. I sighed. I walked toward the North Gate, my heels clicking on the pavement. I saw the commotion before I saw her. A white Range Rover, leased, likely payments behind, was parked haphazardly on the green, one wheel crushing a bed of petunias. Cheyenne was standing by the driver's door. She looked like a funhouse mirror version of her former self. Her hair was brittle, her designer dress was stained, and she was swaying. There she is, she screamed when she saw me. Her voice cracked, raw and desperate. The thief. The usurper. The crowd nearby went silent. People lowered their phones, not to film, but out of sheer discomfort. You stole my life, she shrieked, stumbling toward me. This should be mine. You were the help. You were supposed to fix it. She lunged, but security caught her arms. She didn't fight them physically. She just collapsed into a sobbing, screaming mess. Mom lost the house because of you. I lost my contract because of you. You ruined everything. I stood there, 5 feet away, and watched her unravel. And in that moment, the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. For a year, I had wondered if they missed me, if they felt guilty. But looking at Cheyenne, I realized the mechanics of what had happened. It wasn't about love. It was about the ecosystem of abuse. You see, a toxic family is a closed system. It requires specific roles to function. You need the golden child to project perfection. You need the enabler to protect the image. But most importantly, you need the scapegoat to absorb the poison. I was the filter. I was the one who took the blame, who fixed the mistakes, who absorbed the stress so they didn't have to. When I left, I didn't just leave an empty room. I removed the filter. Without the scapegoat to blame, the toxicity had nowhere to go. It turned inward. The parasite, starving for a host, had started eating itself. Stephanie had turned on Cheyenne, blaming her for the debt. Cheyenne had turned on Stephanie, blaming her for not fixing it. They had cannibalized each other because I wasn't there to be eaten. I didn't ruin anything, Cheyenne, I said, my voice low and calm. I just stopped cleaning up your mess. I hate you, she screamed, spittle flying. I hope you die alone. I'm not alone, I said, looking back toward the main stage where Seth was showing a little girl the North Star. I'm free. I signaled to the police officer who had just arrived. Trespassing, I said. And driving under the influence. I turned my back on her. I walked back to the party, back to the music, back to the stars. I didn't watch them put her in the squad car. That wasn't my job anymore. The next morning, Stephanie came to my office. She didn't have an appointment. She pushed past my receptionist, marching into my private suite like she still owned me. But the woman who entered wasn't the imperious matriarch of the lake house. She was a ghost. Her skin was gray, her eyes rimmed with red. She looked small. She sat down without being asked. She placed a heavy leather folder on my desk. We're losing the lake house, she said. Her voice was flat. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings yesterday. Cheyenne's legal fees, the lawsuit from the sponsor, it drained the equity. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I need you to buy it, she said. I know you have the capital. Stellar Events is doing well. Everyone talks about it. She leaned forward, her eyes desperate. Buy the house, Laura. Keep it in the family. We can work out a rent-back agreement. You can live in the guest cottage. Cheyenne and I will stay in the main house until she gets back on her feet. I stared at her. The audacity was breathtaking. Even at rock bottom, she was still trying to negotiate a deal where I was the servant living in the cottage while they played royalty in the castle I paid for. You want me to buy the house you evicted me from, I said. So you can live in it. It's your legacy too, she whispered. Think of Seth. He loves that house. Seth doesn't love that house, I said. He loves that I don't cry in the bathroom anymore. I opened my desk drawer. I reached past my checkbook. I reached past the contracts. I pulled out a single, crisp white business card. I slid it across the polished wood of the desk. "What is this?" she asked, looking at it. "It's a bankruptcy attorney," I said. "He's very good. He helped a client of mine restructure their debt." She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. Not tears of sorrow. Tears of fury. Tears of a predator realizing the prey has grown teeth. "I am your mother," she hissed. "You owe me." "I don't owe you anything," I said. "I paid my dues. I paid them in cash, in labor, and in silence for 32 years. The account is closed." "You're heartless," she said, standing up, her hands shaking. "No," I said. "I'm solvent." I stood up and walked to the door. I held it open. "You need to leave, Stephanie. I have a client meeting in 5 minutes." She stood there for a moment, vibrating with rage, waiting for me to crack, waiting for the old Laura to apologize and fix it.
But the old Laura was gone.
She left her on the side of the highway a year ago. Stephanie grabbed the card and stormed out. I closed the door. I locked it. And then I sat back down in my chair and exhaled. That night, Seth and I sat on the back porch of the new house I had just bought. It wasn't a lake house. It was a mid-century modern bungalow with a massive backyard. It was in my name. Only my name. We had the telescope set up. The air was crisp. The crickets were singing. I thought about the holidays coming up. Thanksgiving. Christmas. For years, those dates had been sources of dread. Cooking meals for 12 people who criticized the turkey, cleaning up wrapping paper while Cheyenne napped. Now, looking at the empty calendar, I felt a wave of peace, so profound it almost brought me to my knees. People tell you that family is everything. They tell you that you have to forgive, that blood is thicker than water, that cutting ties is a tragedy. They tell you that an empty chair at the holiday table is a sign of loss. But they're wrong. The empty chair isn't a tragedy. It's a victory. It's space. Space for peace. Space for joy. Space for people who actually love you, not for what you can do for them, but for who you are. The silence wasn't lonely. It was luxurious. It was the sound of a life reclaimed. "Mom?" Seth asked, his eye pressed to the lens. "I think I found Jupiter." I smiled, leaning back in my chair, looking up at the infinite, quiet sky. "Let me see," I said. We spent the rest of the night mapping the stars, 2 astronauts in a universe of our own making. I had lost my family, yes, but I had saved myself. And looking at my son's happy, unburdened face, I knew I had saved him too. You cannot save people who are addicted to using you. You can only save yourself. The best revenge isn't making them suffer. It's making yourself happy. It's building a life so full, so complete, that there is simply no room left for them inside it. If you've ever had to fire your own family to save your sanity, share the story. You aren't alone.